when you set up the chairs, that's where people are going to go. So make sure you put the chairs where you want people to go. In this case, if it were me and Janie, we'd have you all right here. But we're not going to do that. Most of anything that an indie rock band can do from stage is say, "Hey, there's a lot of room up here. You guys, there's a lot of room up here." So yeah, fine. Are we? Should we just start?
Yeah. Yes.
We've been told that there's going to be some sort of ongoing churning of people. Some of you have classes to go to at 11:20. Some of you are teaching right now, and so they're seeing this on video. Others are going to be probably rolling in during the course of the presentation. So our goal here is to be pretty informal about it. We're going to just kind of march through a couple of points here in the beginning, but people that come later in the meeting aren't going to have the benefit of our fancy points. So we'll make it quick. But for the most part, just a couple of things we wanted to talk about the overall. Sorry, my name's Jason. I run a company called White Whale Web Services. This is Janie Porche. She's our designer. We are 2 of a 6-person company. At the moment, 6. Next time we talk, it'll be 8. And we have been hired by Washington College to rethink their web presence. That has entailed a lot of different things at different times. But mostly the biggest part of it has been conversations. We came to campus for 3 days, a month and change ago, and met with many of you, but also many others, people all over the place. Heard about people in career services who are sitting on giant storehouses of awesome videos. They're just trying to find a way to get on the internet, and professors with eye tracking labs that have students come in and make videos of students using their equipment. And so we've talked to a lot of people who have stories to tell but don't have a way to get them on the website right now. And then a lot of conversations that are just more about what the website's not doing right now that it should be doing. Fortunately, we don't have to talk too much about the problems with the current website, because if the current website didn't have any problems, we wouldn't be here. Our goal is not to fix problems. Our goal is to actually think about what Washington College should be saying to the world over the course of the next, 5 to 10 years. So in this work that we've done, we began by having a bunch of conversations. Then we published a document and handed it to our team here, which is there's 2 committees here, right? There's a core committee of communications that we work on a daily basis, and there's a web advisory group. Anybody here on that group? Web advisory group. Thank you. Thank you for your service. We would love to talk to you guys as a group sometime, but maybe on the phone. So we put together a document that went out that basically, I'm not going to go through all the points here, but we kind of came up with 12 main points. I'm not going to talk through them, but there's just a couple that I want to point out because you're going to see how we interpreted those things in the design. One of them is the new Washington College site is for everyone. We don't think of the new website as being strictly a tool for recruiting prospective students. Certainly the people who maybe hire us and sign our checks think of it that way. But in reality, we think of the website as a place where everyone on campus ought to have a voice. Everyone ought to be represented there. We don't want any fake stories. We don't want any marketing language. One thing we know about prospective students is they just really aren't that interested in writing about, marketing communications. They want to see what's going on. They want to meet professors. They want to see student projects. So our goal with the website has been to make something that feels authentic and actually shows the voices of the people here in a way that's going to appeal to all the audiences on the site. I think the only other one here that's important is showing and not telling is really important. We aren't going to put in big letters in the website, come to Washington College and get a fantastic education, because anyone can see that. There are very few things that any school claims that it can make about itself that, the University of Phoenix couldn't also make. What we want to do is show pictures and projects and people that can only happen So when it comes to the actual website itself, we kind of have more of a narrow set of goals. Confidence and character. Janie, what is that? What does that mean?
Well, confidence and character to us, I hope you will see a lot of different things in this design that manifest itself as confidence and character, but bringing out a uniqueness of this place, especially around the name, the legacy, George Washington himself, a way to use this in a way that feels authentic and inviting, but not like a trope, or like some sort of heavy-handed brochure about just George himself. So that was sort of one part of it. In general, also, the current homepage is putting so many stories out there, right? And they're constantly rotating, and things are constantly moving. And what that's trying to do is create a campus that looks busy, but really what it's doing is creating a web page that looks busy. And so we wanted to increase the confidence of the presentation by really allowing the stories to sit for themselves, to draw you in. If there's one that you like, we want you to click it and not have to chase it down. So that was something that we really just wanted to have shining through, just thinking constantly about confidence. And then character is about people, making sure that, you know, a student profile actually sort of feels like a student, or a faculty profile feels like something that the faculty member would enjoy participating in. And I hope that you'll see a couple of different evidences of those things.
Quick point, we'll talk about centers when we're looking at the designs. Bringing in more stories from more places. A lot of these things are, you know, you'll see what we mean by these things when we show you the design. The biggest thing that we had to, kind of most practical thing we had to struggle with in the design process was the Washington College brand itself. Nobody we met on campus was particularly happy with it. It ranged from, oh, you know, some people didn't like the colors, other people didn't like the fact that George doesn't have a ponytail in the silhouette. Mm-hmm. That made some people
sometimes he does, sometimes
really
he
angry.
doesn't.
Yeah. The fonts kind of are currently in the change. There's different ones used in different places, and in the process of eventually maybe moving to some kind of strong brand, in the beginning we talked with our committee about not necessarily feeling like the logo was the brand, but in fact it could be something a little more personal.
Individual.
So here it is, what do you think? Glad you like it. So again, not to linger on this, but it's occasionally interesting to show the before. So this is the before. And just to let you know where we're at right now, this is a final candidate, and by that we mean communications has been through it, we've talked about it with them, we've gone back and forth a couple rounds, the clay is still wet, there's plenty of room to make alterations and changes, but it's sort of a, you know, it's been in the committee for a little while, so before. One thing that's difficult about web design, one of the many things, is web pages are meant to be touched on glass and moved around and tapped on and scrolled around and clicked, and things happen when you mouse over things, and there's all these sorts of things that happen that you can't really show in a flat image. It's a struggle in our work, especially because a lot of the sites that we do, especially on the homepage, are clickable and pettable, as well as I plan to say. Right? So for the purpose of this demo, we've got kind of a semi-working mock-up here that I'm going to show you, but I'd like to start by just kind of letting things sit for a little while. And then I'll show you, maybe we should just talk through what's actually here first. Right. We have a header bar, a top navigation that's modified a little bit from the current one. The architecture of the site is something we're going to be working on for quite a long time to get it straightened out. The site being hard to navigate is one of the primary complaints we've heard about the current site. So design itself can't fix that, so we're in the process of sorting that out. Well, these photos are stories. So you're going to click or tap those, and you'll get a little more information about what's in those photos. Janie is our kind of primary researcher of stories. What is this turtle radio thing?
Well, we found there's a lot of really great content hidden in some kind of dull titles. You might not expect to find the fact that, you know, this young woman is tracking turtles and their location via her machines and GPS, but it was hidden under like, you know, Science Photos 2012. And so really, there are all these stories on Canvas already that we could find very, very easily. And it took almost no effort at all to figure out how to boost them up and turn them into something that becomes immediately more clickable. You know, Kite's Eye View, so Brian Palmer, right?
Is that you?
Kite's Eye View.
Is that you in the circle there? It is. Okay.
And so, you know, I don't know if you guys know, Brian's doing all kinds of amazing stuff that you would have to dig really deep to find, especially as it relates to photos and videos. Not only the Chesapeake stuff, but, you know, this guy will literally take you out on a boat at sunrise and teach you how to use your camera. And I found that way deep on the website. So a lot of this stuff has been kind of archaeological, that, you know, as we find these little things that are interesting that really help convey the academic cultural life here, to not be afraid of bringing them to the forefront, putting a great headline on there that's going to interest both a 16-year-old and her mom, which we hope a lot of these will do.
We talked, I showed a bullet point up there at one point about the centers. The centers at Washington College are unquestionably a huge asset to the institution. It's really hard to know how to handle them in an information architecture. They're not departments, so, you know, where do you put them? The current website does something that we all think is pretty unsatisfying, which is under academics, I think it is, there's a link to centers of excellence. And then you click centers of excellence and you find these 3 centers. So there are a lot of problems with that. Right? One is it implies that those are the centers of excellence and other places aren't, which is just silly. But it also means you'd have to, like, why would you click that? Why would a 16-year-old kid click the word centers of excellence? It sounds like an awards dinner. So we've tried to break those things out, but we don't want to make it all about the centers. The fact is, the work the centers do lines up pretty well with some of Washington College's existing major strengths. So the way this is played out in this homepage design is, this is some text, you know, and we kind of took a shot at it at one point, and I think communications wants to look at it a little more, but just kind of a hello, welcome to Washington College type thing. Then there's these 3 graphics that represent 3 kind of areas of strength in Washington College. And then when you click them, they open up, and then you're going to see, you know, not just the literals, but, you know, photo gallery, all the departments related to literature and creativity, a news feed of, you know, recent publications, events, and that same approach, we don't have them mocked up, but the same approach applies to each of these 3 general areas.
So that really, one purpose of these things is to be a doorway directly to the center. But also, if you don't know the language of this place yet, and you don't know what the center is, you can find other things out. You know, I'm a kid who's interested in the environment. I don't know what that means yet, but I know that it might mean I want to link to biology and chemistry. It also, I might want to go to the Center for Environment Society and see a video of the Chesapeake semester. We use the curiosity and put these things under these labels. And of course, immediately we will have direct access to the centers, essentially from the homepage, but we get to sort of flavor them a little bit. And
also, the centers aren't places where teaching happens. So if you're a prospective undergraduate, the center is useful to you in some ways and not in others. So if you're interested in the environment, you really want to hear about the Chesapeake semester, and you really want to hear about these boat trips. Learning specifically about the work that CES does is, you know, maybe of secondary interest in that situation. So, that's the general idea. Last but not least, before we kind of start moving through here, down in the corner, just a set of kind of omnipresent links for common audiences. Students, faculty, parents, alumni, and then a Chestertown link that's going to take you to a place with campus events open to the public, Washington College things happening around Chestertown, and so forth. So as you're going to move down the page here, you're going to see more stories. You want to tell us about the senior citizen prompt, Janie?
I mean, what else do we have to say about it? This photo is amazing. You'll see that what we're doing is sort of combining a lot of different, we don't want just the most photogenic things to be featured. that if you have a historical document, that's fine too. The fact that the photographs are beautiful and wonderful, that really there are a lot of different ways for your story to get on a page like this. That obviously these photos look great because it's the mock-up, but we can help make almost any photo look amazing. So that more stories from more places, as we said, end up in a place like this. And you'll notice as we scroll down the page, of course, we always want people to hear about stories. We also want people to find the information that they're looking for, number one. So there's 3 areas of the page that stay horizontally strong and contain all the information that you need to get to. So the top nav always stays in place. The centers bar always stays visible. And then the footer is also an anchor.
So we'll talk about the footer, but what's the point of this long lecture?
So great example. So these stories can also talk about events. The story could be, by story I mean one of these little blocks. It could be about reunion or commencement weekend. And I included this example because this is another instance where a pretty amazing event was hidden behind its boring calendar description, right? It was like, alum lecture, 7:30. And then you click it, and literally the guy will propose scenarios to his listeners of like, all right, we're running out of gasoline and we're landing on the moon. What are we gonna do? And all of this stuff was hidden in an otherwise completely boring calendar description event. So we just wanted to pull some of this stuff out to show how little it takes, the photo is already included, how little it takes to bring this to something that suddenly is deserving of all the eyeballs that it's gonna get. Because it already was. It was just deep in the Google Calendar.
So then after you scroll down for a while, the footer is going to stick and it's going to roll up here like this. And then at the bottom of the page is a little more formal presentation of logo, address, phone number, directions. These links here come more or less off your current site, but that will certainly be, people in communications, people like Lindsay are going to kind of take an inventory of what the most important links are to people, put them all there, so they're always easily accessible. And then the kind of footer page is kind of almost a present for going over.
And then this sort of really fat footer allows, when you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, something that all of our devices make really easy to do. You sort of get this really useful self-contained web page. That if all you need to do is show up in the morning and find human resources, that you get this sort of presentation, address, maps, helpful links, a little bit of character of the place, in a really self-contained area.
A couple other alternatives here to show you. These are mostly different stories. They're mostly different stories. They're all different, except for this kite's eye view. And the reason why that one stayed here is not because we knew that the guy who took the photograph was going to be in the meeting. That would be beyond our powers of divination. But rather, if you've got, so Brian, right? How many photos like that have you taken? Okay, so if you've got a guy on campus who's doing that already, we have clients, how much did they pay Janie, Lake Forest College?
Like $30,000.
For a helicopter.
Don't tell Brian.
I mean,
like, 'cause they had to hire a helicopter, and they hired a photographer, and they did all this stuff that, and honestly, what they're trying to get, what they got, they're not anywhere near as nice as that, because
and it's impersonal, and it's, they had an art directed photographer. Anyway, it's just really great
the
stuff.
point is, if you've got someone who's doing that kind of thing, no matter who that person might be, you might want to think about devoting some homepage space to whatever the most recent pet photo is, or rotate through a series of them, that kind of stuff. It certainly sets the tone. It's gives a sense of the place, but also it's just an interesting story. And then the same is true here. This was I think it was men's lacrosse before, and now it's women's lacrosse. That's going to be always lacrosse. But athletics is such an important part of life here that it's not like. We don't want the homepage to feel like ESPN or something, but the idea of setting aside some space on the homepage to always have a sports story felt like something that would maybe bring people together. Of course, all these decisions are eventually made by you guys, but we are kind of trying to illustrate what we think are our good approaches. Janie kind of essentially researched and composed all these stories and headlines, with the exception of Lax and Everybody, which I mean.
And so what you can see in this, like the variation of stories here is that, we can talk about this on-campus close-knit experience, we can emphasize the beauty of this place and the history of this place, and then on the same page, an open mic night, or the fact that students are going to New York City and learning things and taking photos. And again, all of these things are remaining still in front of you for you to explore them. And then, you find one that you like, you go a little bit deeper into it, and you don't have to chase any of them around or figure out, is this under news and events? Or is this a profile? Or is this something else? Rather than sort of categorizing things by columns, we just want you to explore all the ones that seem like they're interesting to you. Because again, the transactional things are always going to remain on the screen. You're always going to be able to click admissions. If you're ready to apply right now and you just want to click admissions, great. You can always do that. But really allowing for so much more of a sort of day in the life or whole campus perspective than was previously possible.
We have a really good example of that. So this is actually the first time I've been in the room where Tanya, our vice president, and I made our initial presentation for this job. One of the things that we said in that presentation was, you guys are doing so much right already. The homepage is a little jumbled, it can be kind of hard to navigate, but in terms of content and storytelling, you guys are doing so many things right. And so this brings me to maybe our favorite page on the whole site. So college students drink beer, right? We're not going to make a big deal out of it on the website. We're just going to kind of, nobody's going to talk about it at any university, but they're just going to kind of continue to drink beer. So you guys have this story about beer making. It doesn't just it's so interesting and engaging and academic and just fascinating, So this is one of dozens of stories you have like this. They're photo galleries, but they're told by means of the stories. You don't know how many of our clients have a photo gallery and it's just like click, click, click with no captions. But each of these pages is a story. Any of these can make it on the homepage.
I've got a question. This is all beautiful and this is great. I'm kind of curious. Let's fast forward a year,
Sure.
and let's say that you guys have done this. How will Washington College keep making our website beautiful?
Yeah,
That's kind of my next transition. How can we keep doing that?
That's a great question. I can talk about the technological aspects of how you're going to do that, but
Sure, start there.
okay. So, everything we're talking about here is going to be driven by a new content management system. And the CMS, or content management system, that you guys are going to be using is going to make storytelling a lot easier. It's going to make it easier to store photos and share things and borrow things from other places. We should keep in mind that we're talking about a homepage here. Most of the pages of the website, 98%, 99% of the pages are not going to be, a giant photo mosaic. The homepage just is kind of unique in the sense that everyone's coming to it, everyone's bringing a different set of expectations to it. But if we're talking about application instructions for international students, that's obviously a very different kind of template. But the point is, making this kind of content is going to be easier technologically. There are going to be more struggles with how to get it done. A lot of you, how many of you currently get your web changes done by emailing Shane?
Or 10.
Or 10. So you can still email Shane after the new site launches. But the odds are that people you work with are going to be learning how to do this stuff themselves and taking an interest in it and actually enjoying it because it's fun, right? So the support's going to be there, but the tools are going to make it easier too. The important thing to know about these photos is they all came from you. They all are galleries you currently have.
Right.
You barely touched any of them.
I think it's important, this might sound strange at first, we're going to lower the barrier to entry, and then we're going to lower our standards a little bit, which sounds funny, but if you have one giant image on your homepage, it has to be perfect, right? It better have exactly the right disciplines represented and a perfect amount of diversity among your students. As soon as we have more than one, the pressure is relieved, right? So now we can show lacrosse, and we can show faculty reading, and we can show something in the lit house. And because we're showing more of these, we're creating this dynamic feeling that the photos don't have to be perfect. You know, camera phone photos, these boxes are done at the size so that even a student's camera phone photo from their Habitat for Humanity trip is gonna make something. It's gonna make an area on this page that we can absolutely find a place for it to look amazing.
You know,
And
it doesn't mean just any photo will work. I mean, there's certainly, you know, helpful hints for retouching photos. You know, there's different ways to make photos look great for the web, but the source material is all about it.
And we wouldn't put like, you know, headshot of the president in one of these areas, of course. It's not really a story anyway. But so, you know, by lowering the barrier to entry, and then also, as people start to see their own stories in this place, that does a lot of, you know, sort of owning it, and then feeling like, oh, the Lava Lab wasn't there. And if you look at that photo, it's not even, you know, if we ask the 4 women who are in it, they'd probably be like, I hate that photo, oh my gosh. It's great, it's amazing. And it was like a very kind of low quality photo that still conveys so much about the place, especially in the context of these other stories. So encouraging participation, lowering our standards a little bit, and making sure that, you know, anyone knows how to submit a photo, who to tell if something's going on, just making sure that people are always aware that this is a place where their things can go to.
Let me add just the bad news. The bad news is no computer application can make people care about their web pages. You know, it's certainly going to be something that, you know, we're hoping that you're all going to want your web pages to look nice. You know, no one's going to come in with a stick and force you to keep them up to date. But we're hoping that you're going to look at your site with a little more analytical eye, even other people's pages. You know, because currently it's kind of a triage situation. Like things have to get up there immediately. You know, there will still be some of that, but we're hoping people will, you know, kind of think of the websites more as communications tools.
And it's worth noting that the homepage gets a lot of attention because it's usually the first step in this process. There's so much design work left to do. There will be new homepages for centers, new homepages for academic departments, you know, new places for admissions to put their things. So we get to see step one, but then the same amount of design work and critique and feedback goes into all the other types of pages that we're going to make too.
The last thing I'll check.
Yeah, well, everything that you're saying is terrific and makes perfect sense. I guess what I'm having trouble seeing is just because I'm old student, but I don't understand how your web page does all those things better than the one you. Can you sort of help me through that?
Well, let's take a look at the current.
I mean, you talk about all these things that are very to you, but
So I don't want to like,
Well, I think it's worth, you know.
I want everyone's feelings in here. Like I'm going to talk about this to answer your question, but I completely respect all the work that's going on here. The top photo, right? When was the last time that it's changed? Anyone know? Like it's sort of, we have 5 or so photos in rotation.
No, the photo itself.
The photos themselves.
same 5 photos.
Same 5 photos. So they also sort of, you know, who is this? What are they doing? It doesn't say, it's kind of vague. They become part of the learning environment.
What we're talking about here is not necessarily, are there good stories on the website? Because there are. What we're talking about is more, you know, what is the impression this page is sending, right? And there can't be any one answer to that question because every audience comes with a different set of baggage, right? To my particular eye, as someone who, you know, talks to people a lot and does a lot of usability testing, whatever, I know that when things don't move, people don't read. When things move, people don't read. So it's, you know, there's content scrolling. It feels like there's an attempt to sort of get everything in the world there in front of my face. You know, there's a certain, I don't know, busyness to it that I don't like. It doesn't necessarily feel organized. But having said that, it's 100% serviceable. You know, it's adequate.
Okay, now the second part of my question, how does your page do that?
Well, I mean, you know, we can't necessarily answer that for you because it might not. You know, you might look at the new one.
How do you redesign it with the objective in mind to engage people more? Sure. It's great what you did, but how might it engage anybody with this design? What is it about that?
Well, you are being critical, obviously, because that's the question that you're asking, right? Like, defend your work. So let's try. In general, what we know, and so I mean, I don't know, whatever. We work with colleges exclusively, and so we've done, 15 or 20 of these in the last several years. They're all pretty different, but what we know is people learn by exploring. They learn by clicking things and digging into things and finding things. That's how people form emotional engagements with institutions. So in our work, we do our best to provide avenues or opportunities for engagement by users via their analytical reasoning, right? So Washington College, just to talk about prospective students, which is, again, one of many audiences for this website, obviously important. They are looking for a school where they will be intellectually stimulated and socially stimulated, and they'll grow in all these different ways. They're looking for an experience as well as an education. So our goal in designing the homepage is to create the impression of an actual experience, right? So our opening slide here said that the goal of the redesign is to make the site more like Washington College itself, right? And it's not my place necessarily to say what Washington College is like, but what I know so far is it's intimate, there's a real strong community, people talk a lot, people engage, it engages people's minds, and what we've done here is, I think, try to represent that. We can't be the final judge of whether that works or not. One of the reasons we're having these presentations is to figure out if it does.
I feel like something just, a really important thing about the old homepage, and if we could just go back to it for a second. If I'm a student, I have no idea how to participate in this, right? I have to be profiled as revolutionary to ever make it in the top right. I don't, the main photos sort of look marketing-y. I wouldn't know how to participate in that. And then these stories, I don't, it's hard for me to say, wow, I have a really cool picture from my Habitat from Humanity trip, where I want it on the homepage. And this sort of, again, these things, like homepages sort of grow organically because a lot of politics start taking over.
Right, no, the words Habitat for Humanity are on the page. That's not a question.
Do you participate as far as to share your stories with the website or to read what's on the website?
Yeah, I mean both. But in particular, we're talking about sharing people's own experiences and stories. So, marketing doesn't work. The reason why Washington College continues to attract high caliber students is not because of the quality of its marketing, it's because of the quality of the institution. The best we can hope for from a design is to present as accurate a picture as we can of the actual place. And that means getting students to participate, showing the student experience, all that kind of stuff. So,
I also
that's,
think
Janie, I'm not sure, is it clear to everybody that on your site that those pictures all are stories? In other words, they're not static.
oh, I think so.
Okay, so that's interactive and you can read that in the community.
Can you click on one of those so we
Sure.
can see the
Yeah.
story?
If you need this work now, you can show how that story would look.
Not at this point. So I'm kind of trying to tackle the bigger implication of your question, but I think it's a longer, probably, conversation that we have.
well, wait, I just want to say really quickly that to go back to our goals, showing how the centers fit into life as a college, right? On our previous homepage, they were just links, and there wouldn't be any reason for you to click them at all. They certainly wouldn't have any connection to academic programs or to certain events, or if a center has a video they want to highlight, there wouldn't be a place to show that integration. And then confidence and character is something that, I don't know how on the old site we could get the words Washington College any larger. There was sort of this fear, like, we'll just keep making it bigger. And in fact, you've already done enough research to get to this page. We want to reward you with something that feels unlike the other college homepages that you're looking at and has some more individuality and uniqueness than just something that sort of implies a letterhead fee.
Same question.
So,
I think you talked about increase the traffic of the website. Could you tell us a little bit about how you're going to make this happen on the new website?
Increasing
Traffic to the website?
Yes.
Well,
Can you guys repeat that question, please?
yeah, the question was, are we talking about increasing traffic to the website? And I think that, it's in every institution's interest to have a website that's interesting and engaging. You know, we're not like, redesigners don't drive more hits, you know what I mean? It's just a matter of, yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure how to answer your question.
Well, I think, you know, we want to make sure that each of these stories, so when we have a new little story, Lax everybody, you know, Women's Lacrosse Wins Championship, then not only is that on the homepage, but it is a modular, self-contained unit that Lindsay will post on Facebook and Twitter, and that students can share and get linked back to the story on the website. Right now, it's really hard to link one little modular thing.
Yeah, and it's also important to understand, I mean, we're looking at a homepage design here. You know, there's a 15-page strategic document behind it. There's a lot of things we could talk about that are probably more in line with those kinds of objectives than just kind of the design itself.
And a couple of structural things that people may not be aware of is that the previous homepage, that the whole site was built as a bunch of microsites. So that one advantage of restructuring this, regardless of what the homepage looks like, is that we've completely changed the way we will represent in terms of search engines and stuff like that. So that there is, and that's, again, independent of the design, just simply the way it's structured and using this new content management system will raise our visibility, because instead of spaghetti code and a crazy quilt of pages that have just accumulated, there will be a real logic and infrastructure to the site. That may or may not be visible in this demo each.
But if you mention that the content management, then it should be easier for user to find the information they need.
Sure.
So far, can you just display how you're gonna make this easier for, you know, the user can find within college all the information they're interested in by any link.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. One of them is, you know, a link like academics is going to not just take you to the departments, but, you know, take you to a landing page for academics. It's going to point you in a bunch of different directions and kind of give you everything you might want under that category. The search is going to work a lot better. There are a lot of things that are a lot more practical, though, that aren't necessarily in the model. You know?
And I think it's worth noting that for everything that's a little bit unusual about this design, or kind of looks like a college homepage that we haven't seen before, we counter that with something exceptionally practical, right? So making sure that the navigation feels standard. We're using words that you would see on a lot of other college pages, so that if you were comparing, you would say admissions over here, admissions over here, admissions over here. Including links like this, that right now are sort of hidden under login / offices and resources. So the ability to make sure that, you know, wow, this page looks kind of new. It has these dynamic photos and a signature, and that's really compelling. But for every step that we do in that direction, we go farther the other way, so that these are always visible. You know, you can be on this page as a faculty member and always get to a page that contains your shortcuts and your stuff.
So one of the things you've talked about is that we're going to be driving some more of our own content towards this. You know, so Brian takes a bunch of pictures and he has a way to submit them. Do you have that ready? Can you show us what the, like,
Yeah.
I log in and submit my story
Well,
will look like?
yeah, I'm going to show you right now the address of the Washington College Redesign blog. Most of you have probably seen it on some level. It's been emailed out in some kind of way, right? So the point of this redesign site is just to provide a location for these guys to give regular updates on what's going on. Introduce the project team, but then there's a link here called Share Your Story that lets you submit not just stories, but events and photographs that go right into the content management system. So we're already sort of beginning the process of collecting all that stuff right now. You know, that's not even the short answer to your question, right?
And so eventually there will be something very similar to that on the...
Integrated right into the site. Yeah, I mean, it'd be, you know, it might well be something that shows up on the captions and photos or something, you know.
Submit one.
Great. Please.
Yes, I'm on the, what are we calling it, the advisory team, Meredith?
WAG.
The WAG.
Advisory
The WAG, I'm a WAG. Also retired faculty member, current administrator, with a fair amount of attention to the college and its website over the years. My concern with what I've heard so far today, and maybe it's just because of my experience, is that virtually everything you have said has been about marketing. You may not like the word, but that's what it is. And I think that's a crucial part of what the website will do. But for me as a user, continuing user, the homepage that you provide is effectively irrelevant. I want a portal to what's going on inside my institution, so I can get to the people and places I need to now.
Sure.
It's one of my biggest concerns with the current site. It is very hard to navigate from that perspective.
Sure.
What is the prospect of one page that is reached from outside URLs and a different page that is reached from inside, from on campus?
Well, some schools do that. The downside of that is not everyone on campus feels the same way you do about what's useful and what's not useful, right? So one of the reasons why websites like, often have links that say for faculty and staff, for example, is that's a page expressly designed for faculty and staff who only care about links to the stuff that's most important to them, right? So we can talk about it in terms of what page on the website do you bookmark as your homepage, right? If you're interested in the overall life of the college on a daily basis, you'll bookmark this one.
Yep.
If you just want like email link, then you bookmark the inside. It might be kind of an oversimplification, but it's sort of that's the quick answer.
And we want,
It's
okay.
yeah.
Yes. Oh,
So
one person.
two questions that are linked. The first being, how frequently do you see these changes, like these photos they have? The second being, is there going to be some sort of easily accessible archive of previous stories?
So sure, there will for sure be an archive. I think the best way for me to answer the first question is just to say that all the homepage designs we create come with a document that lays out our view of the answers to those questions based on what we think people can make sense of, right? So it wouldn't make any sense for us to say every story on here has to change every year because that would overwhelm the capacity of the communicators, but it also just wouldn't be that effective for visitors. You wouldn't, you want to have the same thing visible for a few days, and they're sort of they might keep a storehouse of some old stories that could always be reused, like beer making or a Habitat for Humanity story that they don't go out of style. So maybe one of them is different if you visit the site every few days. There's just kind of a basic sustainable model for this stuff.
They're also very modular and interchangeable. So if, for example, like the week before reunion or birthday ball, right? Birthday ball or birthday bash?
Birthday ball.
Birthday ball. Week before birthday ball, maybe the whole homepage has different stories, all that relate to the big idea of birthday ball. Some of them are about events, some of them are the history behind the thing. But also, these things can be moved around so that, let's say that James Hand Alumni Lecture, it's the day of. We can really easily move it to the top of the page and get more eyeballs on it without redesigning stuff and making a new shape or a new size of anything. It can just sort of become a featured area through the week.
You kind of answered my question because I'm more interested in the functionality of the system and how I can use it to make my job easier.
Sure.
But just my first impression of the website, I think it's great. The main difference I see is that this website invites me in.
Yeah.
I see it and I'm impressed and I'm curious. The other website makes me want to stop, look, and analyze and pick where do I have to go. This kind of, I suddenly just want to go. So I'm assuming these images are links to the website.
Probably what would happen is, I would either tap this photo on a mobile screen or I'd click this link. It would just show me a little caption telling me what I'm looking at.
But
So it's not going to send me right away.
I think this speaks more to where websites are going in the future and PCs as well, because it kind of reminds me of, there's a beta version of Windows 8.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of,
It is a little
it's
bit, it has a
designed
little
for
bit
the
of that,
touching, the images are bigger.
Windows 8 is the first thing
more
Microsoft has made
mobile.
worth emulating
Yeah,
in 20 years.
I think it works. It looks, to me, like it's speaking to a future PC. But once again, I'm more interested in the
Right.
content management system
Yeah,
and
and
how.
the easiest thing to say about that is there will be a lot of training and a lot of time and a lot of people invested in getting you on board with it. You know, one thing, you can't have a community of people sharing content if they don't like doing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if people don't know how to do it, then they're only going to do it when they absolutely have to, you know? So it's in Meredith's best interest, their whole team of communications, for everyone to really know how to use the stuff and really be comfortable.
I want to, there will be a lot of training opportunities. It does not take a lot of training to learn to use.
Yeah.
Say something about curation of entries from the community. The last thing I want to see on the birthday ball page is the after ball drunken brawl at some house off
No one
campus.
Right.
And along a similar line, the captions really need to be literate. They need to express the values of an institution and not the values of a 20-year-old's blog. How do we
I think
control for that?
as people who kind of talk to college students an awful lot, you'd be surprised how uninterested college students are in seeing pictures of the after birthday brawl bash on their college website. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about young adults who have a certain seriousness of purpose, even if they do party on the weekends. You know, I mean, like, these aren't like children. So having said that, yeah, I mean, curation is obviously important.
And nothing will go onto the homepage untouched or unchecked ever.
Right.
Okay.
The way that plays on other pages is sort of up to individuals. You know, you might want a direct feed of everybody's in your department to come on your page. Other folks might want to really fuss over all the details. That's kind of a site-to-site question once you get into this.
In fact, curation is actually a great word. The way that this works is people suggest their stories,
Okay.
and then either a group will call the homepage committee, or whoever's in charge of that can go through and select, all right, we had 20 things come in this week, of which 3 were completely ugly and we're not going to use ever. 5 we're going to wait for another month when we have this event, and then we have these 12 left to figure out which one's the best.
And some of them we're going to send Shane out to take a video because they're particularly good stories. Others are good as they are.
One we're going to save for the magazine, not use. The idea is that all the stories are coming in, and then the team gets to decide where they go.
And they're archived so that the right folks can get them at the right time.
Sure, sure.
In June, we normally have new student orientation where the students who are going to attend in the fall show with their parents and go through government briefings and stuff. It might be a great opportunity to talk to another set of users of the website.
Sure.
To see how they feel leading the curve, or you can get this out by that time.
I feel like
But
Lindsay's
you
already
got
created it for a
3 days
couple.
where you got a capture audience where you can take some feedback on how it's navigating through the website.
And there's no reason why that process ever has to stop. You know, I mean, one thing that a lot of good websites do is just sort of always maintain a dialogue between users, you know? So people like Lindsay are going to be hearing from the students a lot about what people like and don't like, and that'll sort of help these guys shape where it goes over the years.
We had a couple new folks come in. I just want to re-scroll down the page to point out that as we're scrolling down the page and we're doing more stories, sorry for the overview, the header stays visible, sticks to the top, centers bar sticks to the bottom, so we have a viewport of everything in the middle, right? And then when you get to the very bottom of the page, we'll float everything up for your useful George footer.
You know,
you show the centers expanding.
oh, sure. So, and I want to make sure that we're clear for the people we work with a lot, that we're not talking about, these aren't necessarily the centers, you know. These are some of the big themes of Washington College that just kind of happen to be associated with centers, you know. So, each of these, we only have the one mocked up for now, but each of these would open up a little panel and will show a center, but also links to departments, news.
I think that's a really critical point, that it's not, you know, three amazing strengths of this place are environmental study with location next to the river / waterfront stuff, you know, the Lit House plus Sophie Kerr plus legacy of writing and journals, and then, you know, the Star Center is an amazing resource, but also the history of this place. That we see these as 3 strengths and 3 centers, So this panel represents the strength, right? So that we can talk about more than just the center itself.
More questions?
Yes.
Speaking of those center icons, I find Katie's eye view in all caps is easy for me to read. But words like American experience, when those are in all caps, or even literature, when it's all caps, is kind of hard on the eye for me.
I mean, let's be clear, everything is super hard on the eye when you're looking up at a projector. You know, we hope that, that they should be easier to parse when you're looking at the screen or a device or something, but it's good.
But the overall, I mean, it's very welcoming and it's refreshing and it's somehow bold and yet kind at the same time. I really like it.
That's exactly the goal. That's a really nice description.
Will those headers and footers be constant to the pages inside?
Certainly not this part, of course. The degree to which the header is the same on inside pages, I think the best way for us to talk about it is probably on the pages that link down directly from the homepage, like the About Washington College pages, kind of the core site in that way, will have all these elements be pretty common. We aren't thinking or saying anything yet about department sites or center sites. We're not going there yet because that's the next step in the design process.
I will say we are very conscientious of a department's, since it's all we do, I don't want to generalize academic departments, but I will a little bit, their desire to, on the one hand, be unique, but on the other hand, fit under the umbrella of the college, make sure that there's consistent ways to get forward and backward to different places.
Right.
So we might not make the headers for departments as large, but there will be a consistent visual element to make sure that they all have.
But they've got to be able to show their personality. There's no reason for a creative writing site to look just like a biochemistry site.
Could you click on the calendar? I mean, is there anything there when you?
No, we're just looking at the homepage design right now.
Oh, okay.
But what will be there is a calendar of events that's an awful lot better than what you've got now.
Okay, thank you.
I'm more interested with the content
Right.
on the website growing. And there will be more information stored in your CMS, right? So I'm interested to know how would it be easier for me to find the information stored in the archive, like how your search engine works.
Could you repeat that for us?
So
the question is how. It's a hard question to answer when we're just looking at pictures, but it's really about how it will be easier to find information on the website. And that's part of that. I'm going to pull up an example. If you just want to watch about the general.
you're gonna pull the search engine?
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as finding, I'm going to separate it into two questions, right? Finding a particular piece of information like tuition or how to pay a parking ticket. Jason's going to talk about that one a little bit. The archive of these stories, I imagine that when you click one and you're reading one, there's probably a little link that's like, search the story archive or whatever. I also imagine if you saw one, and this happens a lot, Mom, I was on the homepage. What for? For this Habitat for Humanity thing. That you would go, Mom comes to the homepage and she can't find it. She starts typing Habitat, and it says, here's all the stories about Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, I'm talking about more technical perspective. For
Right.
instance,
So that's kind of what I'm
all your
saying.
information will be organized and indexed in your archive. That in the future, if you just put a few words, then you'll be easily to find that.
Sure. Everything in the system is immensely, infinitely taggable. It's also sorted by who makes it and when. So, for example, we could look for stories from one particular person or from a group of people or from the community at large. And then each of those things is tagged so that later, if you're searching for chemistry stories tagged with water, we can find those. I don't know.
But we should be clear. Making content accessible and searchable depends to some extent on the people in charge of the content, making the content readable and, engaging.
Okay. So it turned out still the meta search, right?
Well, I just want to talk briefly about the search engine, though. This is another website in our history that uses the same content management system, just to kind of show you how they do search. So, as you start typing things into the search engine, it gives you results automatically based on what you're likely to be searching for. So a lot of those, like a lot of the navigability issues can be solved just right from the search box by locating the top 200 things that people look for and then letting those be automatic results in the search.
And you'll notice that here, so we typed in CHI, and it's going to bring up the Center for Chicago Programs. It's also going to bring up the train schedule because we've tagged that with Chicago. And then it's going to bring up Asian Studies because even though it doesn't include the word Chinese, we know that Chinese is included in the Asian Studies, and that might be something they're looking for too. So we can not only hit on the things that use these words, but even if Washington College has a weird way of saying something, right? We don't call them parking tickets, we call them car infractions. We can make sure that if you type parking ticket, you're going to go straight to car infractions.
Now, how do we make that happen? Is there an authority table built into this, or does this require on the curator meta tagging?
No, I mean, that's something that the people in charge of the building of the website do as part of an inventory of the pages that are there in the first place.
We use a couple of years' worth of search data to build the initial tablet.
We already know what people are looking for on the site by looking at statistics.
And then we also, when you get a search results page, have a link at the bottom that says, if this was absolutely not what you're looking for, how do we make this better? And then you can submit an idea to get put into the search box, auto-completes.
So can I say that your company actually create, like taxonomy to collect all those, vocabulary to indicate, give the hints for the user to find, see the information.
We really don't want to get like too much into the technical details because then I'll wind up like talking for half an hour about it because it's super interesting stuff. But like, yeah, I mean that's the basics of how it works. We're not. It's human work and not machine work. Determining relevance.
Well, yes, but most important for me is I can find information I need, so I need to use the search engine. If I can't find anything there, then it's going to be problematic.
For sure. Yeah, no. And that's definitely a whole part of the process. Brian, you
just a quick question. So, once you get into one of these story pages, is there, because everything's going to be tagged, is there going to be sort of a way to like what are similar stories, and you can kind of surf the stories?
Yeah,
sure.
there is.
Not only that, but the departments referenced in the stories, profiles of people mentioned in the stories. It's sort of a horizontal navigation that we kind of call it sometimes. People's meandering path through websites. Again, there are some people who go there specifically looking for, do you guys accept SAT 2 results? Like they have got a question. Other people are just trying to learn about the school. The site has to appeal to both of those audiences. So, yeah.
So not only related photo galleries, etc., but also faculty who teach in this area, or related news stories from the past 3 months, etc.
Yeah, that's actually most of my question. I mean, I believe in the strength of having a strong narrative from photos. I realize we take up a lot of real estate, but you've got a great, it seems like, solution in that you can scroll through these things and keep regular links at the top and bottom, while also having, impelling people to click on these stories in a way that the current website didn't. What I was wondering about was really, like, how do you strike a balance between rotating, especially if you're able to take 3 or 4 months worth of archive and say, here are related stories, and maybe have things that can maybe rotate within one space, rotate faculty here, rotate alumni lecture here.
Yeah. That's why we talk about things like this kind of being the athletic space, and this being the kite view, and then other squares being open-ended for whatever's important that week. We also have one other thing here that I didn't show you, which was this one here, right? If there's an important event, you can always just put the important event right there. That'll be possible too. So it's not like if there's an ice storm, it's not going to have to be a photo feature. Like there will be things built in to put a big old red bar up there and say, just another part of the communication.
Yes. Do you know the average time a person spends on the webpage, especially
There's no good answer to that because of the fact that some people come there looking for information and some come looking to learn about the place. So, I want a prospective student to spend 4 or 5 minutes on this page, like moving around, tapping things, linking things. I want you to spend exactly 4 seconds on this page because I want you to type REG and get the link for the registrar and click it. So those average out to 2.5 minutes, but that's not a reliable statistic.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if part of the goal was to say the prospective student, by putting all these stories, to help them to spend more time
Yes.
on our website. And then the navigational part for us, when we just need that information very quickly, sort of.
We want you to stay and explore a few things before you decide on it.
So it's for browsing.
Yeah. Sometimes, sometimes people will tell us, we know this is true of Washington College, when people come for a campus visit, it increases their likelihood of applying and matriculating by a factor of 2 or 3, right? So how do you get that to happen on the website? It's not necessarily through making some virtual tour thing. It's actually making the experience of the website more like being on campus. And that means, you want people to kind of walk around and explore and, check things out. And so that's sort of what we're trying to do here.
I know you don't want to get too technical right now, but could you spend just a moment talking about this basic idea of how within the departmental page you're pulling content rather than pushing content to the page?
Sure.
The
So,
widgets and that sort of thing?
yeah. So in general, like we've been saying, we're only talking about the homepage here because that's just where our design process starts. But eventually, we're going to be moving into making templates for inside pages too. Those templates are going to have in them lists of stories. Awesome stuff that's happened in biology, right? And we will create those lists using the same methods we use to make the homepage. Jane will go and dig around and find some stuff, right? The way a great communications process works is a two-way thing where the biology guys are putting their own stuff onto their pages, whether it's pictures of their dogs or people get books published, etc. It's like local news of interest to the biology community, right? And then out of that, people in communications can see that stuff as it goes in there and pull it up to the homepage if it's stuff that's really worthy of interest.
They can pull it up to the homepage and polish it and then represent it.
Right. It can also work the opposite way. If one of the departments here just doesn't have any time or any staff and can't think about their website at all, then it might be that their homepage is just going to show a list of all Washington College stories tagged science. And then anything anyone makes will just kind of show up there because it's got the right tag. So it's, depending on the amount of energy you want to put into your page, you can still make it a pretty interesting page.
Yes, sir. The homepage looks to me like it's very user-friendly for a touch screen device. Was that taken into consideration?
For sure, yeah.
If you have one in front of you, I welcome you to fire it up.
Yeah, we actually, the mock-up looks pretty good on the iPad.
What does it say? I couldn't get there when I tried to type in that address.
Oh, if you just want to type it on your own machine, you can go to washcall.babywhale.net/design.
Oh, yeah, great. A couple of things about the way the scrolling and sticking work are a little different on the device, so it's not like an exact representation, but as an indication of how it works, it's pretty nice.
So yeah, you can see the alternates here and then.
So, I think your question is right on. It's definitely part of the way we think about pages anymore in general. The mobile's really complicated because there's all these devices doing all these different things, and the idea of making a mobile website is not something that's really means anything right now, because we have all these devices that are mobile that they can show you any web page in the world, So I think that just trying to make things that feel more manipulable is kind of part of this.
A big part of designing for mobile now is encouraging scrolling and not fearing it. That every single device we have, the mouse gained a wheel, and now every mouse has a wheel. We can scroll on things with our fingers. And so we still care about the fold and keeping important stuff above the fold, but really, it's okay in this new mobile space to encourage people to walk down the page a little bit.
And actually, one nice thing about the design, it's actually pretty, I'm going to drop a fancy term, but I'm not going to. It's a pretty realistic motion if you pull up your iPad and you just say, get all that stuff away from me.
Right.
Yeah. But also, if you're using your fingers in order to hit a specific link.
Right.
Many times the links are too small and you end up hitting the wrong one or three at the same time.
So you do things on a device like on a desktop computer, probably only the link is what you click, but on a mobile device you probably click the square. It's like there's different ways you think about like the radius of a link that make things a little bit more friendly.
And it's another reason why when you first touch shore songs, we don't want to send you somewhere else. We're going to tell you a little bit more, so that if you didn't mean to, you're not suddenly in the open mic section of the website. Yes?
So we've heard words like curate were mentioned as far as like how we're going to decide what gets on this page. And I'd be curious if you could speak a bit more about how the CMS functions in terms of automating so that it's not constantly on Tim. I mean, maybe it'll have more time for Tim and Shane to do this because there's other people editing pages and they're less.
5 seconds to prepare. Maybe you can answer that question, Lindsay. You have a little more familiarity with the tools than some of these other people.
As far as changing things
Like
up.
how, well, repeat the question, it's like, how does the curating actually work?
Well, how much do you spend time curating versus how much can you tag things correctly? How much would CMS allow you to maybe tag things in a way that allows them to be more automated as they roll through or rotate? Or if you have like a bunch of people coming on campus for orientation, you have ways to quickly select a whole bunch of stories to drive to the top to help those students. If you have commencement coming up and you want to get some alumni, but also some current students who are graduating type of things. You know, is this all going to have to be constantly on Shane and Tim's desk to make decisions curatorially, or are there ways for the CMS to help? Maybe they just create a calendar and say every May 1st we need to get these commencement links going.
The CMS really is helpful with that because it has a suggestion thing built in. So if you're working on something and you think that our office should definitely know about it, it's not just for the website, but also for social media to communicate it to, or the online social media, things like that. You can suggest it within the CMS and it will send us a notification, and it won't just be on Shane and Tim's desk. We'll all be familiar enough to work with it, but we'll also be able to bring up in staff meetings and kind of discuss, this is the plan for commencement weekend.
Yeah, and all this stuff, you can schedule things to go live in advance and that sort of thing. So you could definitely plan for a whole communications launch to happen on the morning of commencement without having to, go in at 6 in the morning and make everything live. So.
And probably a lot of the things on the homepage will end up being touched by communications, but when we get to, you're in the registrar, right?
Yeah.
So if you get to the registrar's office and the ability for you to have a news feed, let's say people start browsing biology courses, little sidebar, it's like new news from the biology department, etc. That's the sort of stuff that's like automatic. You can decide, does that live on this page or not? And then if they pump out news, great, it shows up in this spot.
Right.
If they don't, it won't show up at all. So the curation on the homepage is still sort of always going to have some eye on it to make sure that these first-time visitors aren't, seeing whatever our worst nightmare is. But once you get one step further, it's also about, again, having people move this stuff around and saying, updates from the registrar. And the ones that are updates from the registrar that are tagged with theater will show up on the theater department site under the little title, updates from the registrar.
Like hashtags.
Yeah.
So you talked earlier about making more of these stories be packets that can be more easily shared, Facebook, but all that stuff. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, I think it's as simple as our job as designers, visual designers, is to define literally the shape of the story. Like a homepage story has, it wants to have this aspect ratio, the photos like this, etc. We define that stuff. Those things become, presets in the CMS on some level, so that then, the homepage is just kind of an assemblage of these various pieces. Out of that, any of those individual pieces might have come from somewhere else. When we get to the department design, we may well include a space for a big image on the departmental homepage that happens to correspond to one of these spaces on the homepage, so it can be easily kind of swapped in and out.
So we can make sure that if you have a photo that you want to submit, no one's going to be like, oh man, your photo's not 500 by 333, so we can't use it. Right? You're just going to put it into the system, and the system's going to make the correct size for us and make sure that that's all, it's not like stretched or weird. Put the caption in the right place.
As the newly drafted art historian on the way, I guess you'd expect this, but...
Boy, now I'm trying to figure out what to expect from
Right.
it.
Well, I want to commend you on the sheer visual power of this thing. Plato says there's no thought without a phantasm or image. And that really comes through for me. I think before the website, as handsome as it was just too busy. And to have a kind of visual rhetoric here that's powerful, because I think it'd be a challenge for everyone to get a composition as cool as the one you've got here with diagonals. You've hardly ever seen diagonals on the webpage, and it really draws your eye. I went through a couple hundred web pages this morning before I came in to see this.
Right.
And if we can keep that up, it'll be really big. The second thing that follows on that is, ever since I've been here, me, I hoped we would have some sort of visual integrity on the webpage. That is to say, to use something that is of the period. If we're going to use George Washington, let's not use an NHL hockey-like logo to present George Washington. Having that beautiful handwriting is just to me, as I said to President Reese not long ago, instead of, in literature we take editing of words really seriously. In biology on campus, we take samples of things and DNA really seriously. And it seems that everyone just plays with images as if they can't have, a kind of rule that may even be above words in some sense. And the way people process it in their brain. And to see something like that is really cool. And it works beautifully with all the geometry too. I gather you said something, and I'll stay quiet about the Washington head, but it's even clever how you put that.
Well, we noticed there was some discomfort with the Washington head.
No.
And so, it's a profile that everyone recognizes.
Right.
And so we didn't really need to force it. And the signature is so much more of an individual expression.
It's such an elegant solution. I never thought of it. It's terrific, I think.
It's inspired by our room here.
And it's the human, but it's the human part too. That's something that's, it can be replicated, and everyone knows that's the real signature. So when we start fussing with that head, the head to begin with to me is obscene. I don't know where we got it. It's older, it's flaccid, it's not, we have a life pass to George Washington that was taken from his head. It's at the Pierpont Morgan. It's what? Well, it does not speak. I mean, to me, it's like fudging evidence. It's like changing the Declaration of Independence. And to me, the visual message that the founding, if we're going to talk about founding fathers, let's talk about them. The visual message they sent came from ancient Greece and Rome. And that thing to me looks like a cartoon. You could make something incredibly elegant where he looks up a bit like Alexander the Great. And if you're going to use that language, just use it. Very easy to do.
Interesting point. You mentioned the diagonals at work here.
I love them.
100% unintentional.
Yeah, but it's.
And I can tell you that because the guy here on the left used to be on the right in all Jane's mock-ups, or in one of them he was, instead of the kite's eye view there. I actually made this alternate one with the date there, and so I just put him over there. I didn't think about the diagonals at all. And my point is, those things tend to naturally emerge when you juxtapose things.
Yeah.
You always see you're getting, oh look, they're both pointing in the same direction, or this one's pointing down here and that one's looking up. You find these things just at random without intending to.
And you notice we have sort of a safe zone here on the side, but we're going to bleed photos out so that if you're one of these people who has a big monitor, or that's your style of making your window really big, that you'll see the edges of these photos too.
So much more information in those. It reminds me of, I guess it's most recently been used in the television show 24, but when I was a kid, it was Wild Wild West did this.
Yeah, right.
And it's that movie, you get so much more in there without the, being encumbered by all this text, which is really important, but it's just really powerful. That little follow-up there, will it be easy, because I'm sort of dense, to know that you're just scrolled down to the bottom?
Great point. That's one reason why these things are offset.
Okay.
Right, see, so we don't have the bottom of this photo.
Okay, got you. Okay, so people will just sort of, because that's really
So when we lined everything up too much, it sort of made a fake fold.
Yeah.
And it was easy to think maybe I'm done here.
Right.
So even if your device doesn't have a scroll bar, which I'll rant about that later, this offsetness will kind of move you through.
And it also just kind of, it isn't going to take much for you to just kind of tap, it's.
So,
Except for the little image under environment and society that shows that that's water.
important to get across that that is the kind of thing that needs to always be part of the thinking about the homepage. You know, I mean, if we tried to say, well, we'll put water here and then we'll put a state of Maryland here and something else here, you know, like trying to squeeze all that stuff into the permanent elements of the page, it's easy to make it watered down. But if the strategy says, you know, make sure there's always some water there on the homepage. I mean, there's definitely.
Yeah, we had a ton of water stories before. I don't know.
They might have all been.
And I think to your point, if it's about authenticity, then those pictures will blow up. That's really true to our message.
Yeah.
We have a lot of programs that involve around
And that's the thing too, yeah. I mean, if there's actually things happening on campus, and you know, so if the story is happening on the waterfront, then we should expect to find them on the homepage too.
And the fact that we aren't always looking for the super high quality, I went out with a Nikon camera picture, we can use things from the iPhone, that makes it a lot easier, because I know I would never be allowed to but a phone, you can get a piece of picture from that, and that can go to the story.
And this is actually why, so that when you click environment society, the whole reason we don't just send you to the center is so that you might, that panel might say, you know, it might have Doug Levin's events curated, coming at you from the customs house, and here's what he's working on, right? Or here's the newest video straight from the waterfront. So it's included with the center, but we get to tell more than just sending you straight there.
Well, and from a fundraising perspective, as the college gears up for its waterfront campaign, I think some of those images will.
We'll have water, Jacob.
We will take that.
Jaybird from summer camp?
It does get a huge response on Facebook if there's a picture of water.
Yeah, we're all about water.
Totally.
Here's the proof. We did include the
Waterfront Festival.
Water.
There you go.
Biggest version.
I think I'm getting out of the water.
Other questions? Also, please don't feel obligated to stay if you have nothing to do. There's a lot of other ways to get people involved and check stuff out and give feedback.
Yeah, you will very soon be getting some communications from somebody pointing you even more urgently toward the redesign site. These designs are all going to go up there pretty soon. We're going to start getting feedback and comments. So that will be, you know, a time to weigh in, give it all some thought, let it all sink in, and then compose your thoughts in more detail.
One thing I did see, maybe I just noticed it, where's the logins?
Well, that's a really good question. First of all, it could be almost anyone, right? I mean, it's a matter of, currently you guys have a page called login. Let me actually just,
Well, but there is that little key login.
But it takes you to a page.
And on the homepage.
right, so
Is it going to be on the homepage?
the word login, sure, it can be. It's probably here already. But but let me make a point about it. All right, so here now.
Yeah, there it is.
Right, so
But even, yeah.
So I want to make a quick point about this page. This is the login page, and it's here because it collects all the things people want in one place, right? This is the kind of page that might profitably be kind of winnowed down to, you know, a student's page or a faculty page, right? But what's missing here is any sense of community, right? I mean, I would like this page to be something that a prospective student would enjoy going to. Just kind of get a sense of what things are like there, and it wouldn't have to. It's not a, you know, it's not a marketing page, but certainly photo of the day, links to student organizations, like that kind of stuff that's a little more about the life of the school, belongs on this page. And I think that by having this be the one page for everyone, that kind of gets lost.
Something that, and then if this is too far in the future, you know, say so. But one of the things that we'd kicked around as an idea in my office, thinking about our online community and being able to make the site useful to different people, was the idea that logging in would then open up some amount of resources at my fingertips because I've logged in. Now, you know, the website knows who I am, and so as a staff member and alumni, I have something pop up that'll be functional to me. The same thing for, we have a lot of different alumni volunteers, to create those kind of roles. Is there any thought about any of that happening?
Well, I mean, it's actually interesting. I mean, you would think with all the technology you're throwing at people on this page that you would have that already, right? You don't. Instead, there seems to be a tradition here of just kind of throwing web tools at problems. So there's Zimbra and Login and Blackboard and Admin and Web Advisor. And there's all these different tools, but they're not linked together. You don't have one way to log into all of them. There's all this stuff. And so that's a technological issue, obviously more than a design issue, but it's certainly the case that, it could be handled a little more elegantly.
I would also, just for the fun of it, let's solve the end of the equation first. When you log in, we need a box that contains whatever, because I don't just want to make a box, a contextual box for an audience that then later someone's going to hide stuff in there. It's not going to be as visible. Or I'm accessing this from Kuwait and my login doesn't work, so now I can't get to the alumni directory. Like, we don't want to hide things that aren't private or business related or whatever, because we want to always have as much of these things available as possible. If a good example might be like accepted students, right? Is there something for accepted students where it's, now you see something different? But even then, we want to have a really good idea of what the something different is and solve for that, rather than just solving for audiences.
There is space, though. We work with constituencies that there are things that we don't want to put out to the general public. So there are certain things that we are going to want to.
No, everything on the website will be visible to the general public.
No, I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke.
No.
No, of course. There would definitely be like private login-based sections of the website for private matters. It's just it's a lot of stuff tends to get treated as private when it's not necessarily private, like campus news. There's like things that are updates, things that get put behind those kind of walls when they don't really need to be, as opposed to business requirements, secure forms. Like all that kind of stuff has to happen behind the wall.
So next question, since we're focused on, we're pulling, not pushing, is that right? Our news, is there the possibility for a way for, I'm interested in these segments and I want to get a email, send me a digest of what's updates to English writing and drama, to get that kind of thing.
All that stuff is doable technologically. People get a lot of email already.
I'd rather send them to a page.
It's one of those things like it's, I think the easy answer is the technology exists for all that stuff.
I can make them a custom RSS feed.
But the point is, like, none of it is complicated, but like, in theory, we'd like these interactions to happen on the web where they can be accessed via devices and various things, and not just push to email. But still, all possible. Yes.
Back to my login page. I don't really answer your question, but on the current login page that we have now, I know it may not be pretty, but I use that page all the time, every single day.
Sure. Oh, make no mistake.
10 locations a day on that page right there. That's like my go-to page.
Sure. And it's not going away.
Okay.
Right? It might change its name from login, it's kind of a funny name for that page, to for faculty and staff.
Like, to be really specific, it feels like when I click login, what I expect to happen is to get a little field to put my stuff in.
Well, we do have that too.
This is hidden. So it took a while for us to find this stuff.
Well, and that's, I guess, is my question, or what I'm trying to ask you. On that first homepage, I don't see login, and when we came up with our new homepage, I bet I spent 10 minutes looking for how to log in.
Sure. So
I wasted a lot of time.
To answer your question in two ways. First, we go back to design. So any combination of these things that are already on your login page will make it here.
Okay.
Including duplicated in a number of places for these audiences. And there will be, at some point, some day when you decide, I'm going to click faculty and staff now instead of login. And you'll have to learn it once, and then we won't change it on you. And the link will be here, always. that what's inside that page might change and shift seasonally or whatever, but you learn it once and that's it.
Right. I mean, you click login right now and you don't log in. You go to a page with a bunch of other things that you have to click to log in.
Yeah, but then you have lots of options, lots of different things you can log in.
No, and then that's totally true.
So for where it has 4 students and all the different people, by clicking on those, is it going to expand up and have that below it, or is it going to go to 2 different
I
pages?
mean, probably not, simply because I would rather not be visually constrained by a certain space limitation. So we might want to have links to all the student organizations on the For Students page. You know, we might want to have a big long list of events on the For Chestertown page. You know, and it's that kind of stuff is
And we want to
messy
make them
content.
bookmarkable.
Yeah.
So like standalone, you know, you could, if you live in town, you could bookmark washcall.edu/Chestertown. And every time you go there, it's like a big calendar open to the public stuff. All your links about parking and dining in one place.
Also, just another quick question, and not to jinx it, but you were talking before about the way the homepage was working. And in your mind, I know this is still mock-up, but if you were to have, let's say, like one of these feature stories, which the feature really is a video, but there's a photo that kind of hurts us here. When you click on that, would that then go to a separate page, or would it literally just fade as black and then the
It
video?
would probably do exactly that.
What's that?
It would probably do that. I mean, it's probably going to be an option for the people who manage it in a way. Like if it's the kind of content that's got a great page around it, you know, if there's like if there's great content that goes with the video, let's go there. One thing that happens with place videos is like, it's got a great picture, so I click it to watch the video, and the video loads, and it just kind of starts with the person giving a speech or something. You know, it's not contextualized, and so it's hard to be
Well,
engaged
that's
with
why
it.
video editing would be more.
Sure, but even,
Same way,
I mean,
you don't want to throw up any story, you want to think about what you're writing, you want to think about it.
well, sure, but you don't necessarily want to edit the video for like maximum immediate impact. You know, like if the point is we're teaching a new course, you know, you want to maybe have it start with someone saying, when I first came to Washington College, you know, you can kind of go on, you know, you want to be engaging in that way. So, you know, they're both possible, and it might be these guys decide they want to be able to.
Is the department itself, you can watch it in place, but there will be a way to play up video in place on the homepage too.
Here's sort of the question that made me think of it. I mean, I'm staff, but I'm also a recent alum, and my parents had terrible dial-up internet. So how does this load for people who have terrible dial-up internet?
There's these, in fact, better than a lot of, because these are presented in a dynamic way, they look big and like really immersive. These are really small photos. They're 500 pixels wide. They're the same size as literally the header image of the login page. So, you know, there's not any flash stuff. There's anything that would be video, we would wait to stream it until you push play. There's a lot of
Let me ask you this way too.
here.
If the photos were sort of like, they could theoretically be kind of limitless, you know, like scroll up another page, in that case, we would probably lazy load them so they'd load when they came into the viewport. For a page like this, it's not going to be terribly heavy, you know. Dial-up is a weird situation, you know, like it's unusual. Certainly, the first thing on the page that would load would be the top navigation and search ones. So you might be sitting there waiting for images to load, but you've got the search. You know what I mean? So, anything else? All your questions answered. Amazing. Do you have any questions? I don't think you guys do.
Me?
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. I was noticing that, and we sort of talked about this in some of our meetings before, that one of the things that's, I think, really neat about this interpretation is old websites you visit and it's literally like a page from a textbook, but it's on the internet. And so you scroll down, you click to the next page, but it's very much like reading a textbook. And this feels much more like an online community where people are adding their own things, they're pulling things out, they're making the experience their own. And I think that that's a really cool direction for us to go. I hope that we can bring other people to that page, because I think that's a very forward-thinking way of looking at the internet, and especially in a community that's had sort of the same static approach. This is a big transition, and I think it has great potential, and I think you've captured it beautifully in images.
Thanks. I mean, I think that the makeup of a group like this is always, if you factor in the communications people that are here, but kind of factor them out of the equation, you know, fairly representative staff. There will be people who feel like it's not practical enough, you know, who like want the information to be right there. There's too many photos, not enough words. There's lots of, you know, the people who had critiques, you know, it's entirely valid and fine to not love a web page, you know, and I think that we look at people like these and say, whether they like it or not, the website itself, we want to make sure their needs are met. And if their needs are lightning fast access to information, we make sure the website provides that, you know. But in general, I don't know, everyone's pretty cool with the overall approach. You know, it's not a, you know, yeah, we don't sense a lot of resistance around here for new ideas.
It feels like, so a lot of our design work tends to not look exactly like other college homepages. And I think it's really, you guys can see how critical it is that we're not using fake stuff. Because it would have been really easy to put fake stuff in here and have you guys be like, what? How are we going to do anything like this? But to show this is already existing things, we didn't even have to go on Flickr. This is already stuff on the web page already that we're reshaping and representing to you.
And you talked about this, but as you're saying, Megan, I think the user doesn't feel manipulated down any path. You're really exploring your own interest.
I was going to say that ironic thing is the textbooks are all coming in this direction, I think, now. Because everyone's rewriting their textbooks for the iPad. Okay. Great. Maybe we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.